So I have to go in our next section because we have already overcome and we are 10 minutes late. So I have to enter immediately in our new panel, and also to introduce the new CCI market in the Greek audience after a big research we have done. So I would like to introduce Coni Koepfinger. Hi Coni, how are you?
Dimitris, how are you?
I would like also to introduce Byron Saunders.
Hello? Yes, there we are.
Hi, Byron.
Thank you, Dimitris.
I have to say that I'm sorry, Coni is a resident playwright in Manhattan and in New York. She's also a creative director, and Byron, he's an arts management consultant. He's an actor, director, producer, and in general, we have a lot of creative people in this panel. We have Glen Kinnaird, that he's a theater producer. Hi Glen, how are you?
Hi.
And he's also a playwright and a children's book author. So I think it would be very, very important, your input too. And James Scheider, that he's a New York actor and musician, composer, and he's creative director in studio Bogardus. Hi, James. Thank you for joining us. So if you allow me, before we will start this really creative, and I hope it will be creative conversation, let me give you some figures about what culture and creative industry is, because many people believe that all this is hobby, it's not a profession, and there are so big profession and there are so big market all over the world that even us, we don't know that we are the happiest people, including me as a marketeer, because we have done our hobby a job. So that's why we are happy. Let me now share with you our presentation about the creative industries. So let me full screen. Great. So we have the creative economy. So what is culture and creative industry? It refers to sectors such as individual creativity, skill and talent that related to job creation, wealth creation, and intellectual property. So CCI, as we call it, promotes cultural values or other artistic, individual or collective creative expressions. The cultural and creative industries have become objects of great attention from different areas as economy, politics, and public management. The creative industries account 7% of the world's GDP, growing at an annual rate of 8.7%. So this is very, very big growth. Now, what are the sectors that includes in the CCI? We have the architecture, visual and performing arts, the craftwork, design, publishing, film, video, photography, art and antiques market, fashion, music, advertising, computer software and computer services, interactive entertainment software like gaming, the video games, and of course it's television and radio with their productions. So we can see that all this business is a really big business. Now, the CCI in US market, that the value of arts and cultural production in the United States in 2019 was 919.7 billion, amount to 4.3 of the gross domestic product. We see how important it is for the US market. Between 1998 and 2019, the arts and culture sector contribution grew by almost 80%, 76.9 precisely. The US in 2019 exported 78.1 billion US dollars and imported 45 worth of arts and culture. There were 5.2 million arts and cultural sector jobs in US, accounting of 3.3 of all US jobs, and the arts contribute more to the national economy than do the construction, transportation, warehousing, travel, tourism, mining, utilities, and agricultural industries. So you can understand how important it is in order to focus, and this is why this year we focus on the specific industry. Now, the arts and cultural employment in the United States grew by 1.2% in 2019, and I think that this grew up on 20 and 21 due to COVID, that people discover new skills and new abilities and new wants during COVID, that we were locked down. In Chicago alone, made initiative from World Business Chicago estimates that the creative economy supplies was 660,000 direct and indirect jobs, 13 billion in wages, and 144 billion in GDP. So this means the economic impacts are stronger, as we said before, of the construction and real estate industries. Now I have to rush up, and I will go to Greek market. We have European market that it's really big, but I have to refer to the Greek market. The cultural and creative sector contributes a fundamental pillar of the Greek economy. Even we have discovered it a little bit late, because all these are after 2003, 2004, due to the Olympic Games and in Athens, and then that we have all this infrastructure. The culture and creative sector on 2014, and we are sorry, but there is no more data and more updated data. It was 5.3 billion, that it was 1.4% in that time GDP. And it was employed over 110,000 employees in 47 almost 1,000 enterprises. We have a cultural and current account deficit, and while the untapped potential of CCI remains really high, because we import annually 181 million euros of cultural services and products, and we only export 110 million. So the advertising and audiovisual, radio and television industries have the biggest output multipliers on the Greek economy sectors, like the publishing, software publishing, audiovisual, and television and radio communication. Of course, we have to mention here that there is a very, very big investment in our country during, and especially in northern Greece, that we have 2 or 3 really big film production companies from Hollywood, Los Angeles, that they are here, they are now invested here, and they are running right now some shots for really important and very famous films. So this is a very, very important issue that we are positioning Greece in the world film making industry. So the activities share of the national value added in Greece is higher than the EU average, and this is because Greece, we all know that we have a lot of cultural and creative activities that we could appoint, not only from the past but also from nowadays, and we are a really creative. We are really creative population. Now the effects, it was that the hardest hit of sectors by COVID-19 because it was lockdown, as we said. In Europe, more than 7 million jobs, it was at a risk. And with an estimated loss of 31% in turnover, 2019 turnover, it was one of the most affected sectors in Europe. I think in US too. We will discuss it later. And finally, what about the trends? The trends are the sustainability, the balance between creativity and technical skills, digital arts, health on the spotlight, and CCI and technology evolution. And some final thoughts that I want to input in our conversation is that a common link between arts, science, and public sphere by means of inventions, collective actions, and educational program and publications could be done. And the post-pandemic world, there is an urgent need, in our opinion, and my personal opinion, for certain initiatives that will promote knowledge of contemporary and ancient Greek culture while fostering international culture cooperation, experimentation, and social engagement. In this path, we have an initiative that it's Greece in US, and this is the first and the only one right now official great example of a non-profit organization which aims to collaborate and build long and lasting partnerships with leading institutions and individuals. So this is our, let's say, presentation and input, and I would like to join the whole panel. We have 15 to 20 minutes in order to focus. I was running really fast in order to catch up the time. I hope that I give a good input to all of you. So, Coni, please, the floor is yours, and let's rock.
Well, I would like to say that Daria certainly made a statement when she said that we need to change our processes, because we are in a new world, and we're in a digital society. And how do we create culture? Culture is like, particles in a Petri dish. It's a culture, and we're creating this because we're human life forms, and we can conform, reform, or deform to whatever the circumstances are. But when we perform, we perfect the form. And when we perfect the form, we are able to see new possibilities and see new ways of doing things. And, the Greeks showed us how to do theater. I mean, to me, when I heard that as an undergrad way back when, that the Greeks believed that theater was threefold: to entertain, to educate, and exalt the spirit. And that's the purpose of the arts, to exalt the spirit, to be able to move through a crisis, a situation, and perfect the form of our culture. And right now we're in a global culture. And I think technology has helped us tremendously see beyond what we can see, to be able to see beyond the illusion of doors and windows, and physical binding. We're beyond that. And we need to be able to create live experiences in theater through this new set of illusion that science and art are creating. So I think we're at the precipice of a new golden age. I think that, looking back at the Greeks, how did you even think to create theater? I mean, Thespis stepped out of the circle and all of a sudden there was theater. And to me, that is brilliant. The whole idea of having something created. And if we're not creative, we'll be destructive. That's the nature of being human. Whether we're just overeating or doing whatever, we lack funds, whatever. Creativity is there or it's not. And I think we have to find it in our own lives. And I think the more collaboration we can do, the more collaboration that we see around us helps us to be more collaborative. Right now, I'm working on a project. I've always been collaborating globally. I started in 1997 when I met my friend Kostas Jantzadakis. We took immediately together, with my respect to the Greeks and art. I mean, I don't know how anybody can't learn from you in your culture. It's just, to me, it is theater. And creating comedy and tragedy is just, to me, awesome. And and it lasts. When you think about it, do you think Socrates and do you think Sophocles and Shakespeare thought about circular economy? I mean, no, but we need to keep doing the collaborations. Right now, like I said, I'm working on a collaboration with artists in Greece. We talk through social media channels. We talk through a variety of technology, and we're able to find ways to communicate. And I think it's actually sometimes more effective. Not that personal meetings aren't very valuable, but the personal meetings aren't always necessary. And that's what makes it fabulous in this day and age. So we do have the ability to overcome the challenges right now, the challenges of creating in this economy, but we do have to change our process. And we can't be afraid. We can't be afraid. There's tons and tons of people who are creating in the US and in Greece. And I think it's a really, really wonderful way to start understanding this coming of the golden age, the second coming of the golden age.
Thank you, Coni. And I would like to hear Byron concerning, everybody is, let's say, accusing in a kind of a way, it's not a good expression, but it's a Greek way of thinking, Greeks that they are stuck on the golden age of ancient years, and we try to sell and resell millions of times the same things, always in another package. And do you believe that this is the time that we can make a very big disruption in the global market? Because definitely, as a nation, we know that we are creative. Definitely, that's why we have survived from so many crisis that we are accepting every 5 or 10 years here. So what is your opinion? Is it possible to have opportunities in connecting the modern creativity with the old creativity?
Absolutely. And a couple of dynamics that allow me to have a professional and an artistic opinion. For 8 years, I ran the Queens Historical Society, preserving the history of the 2.5 million people of the borough of Queens, New York City. And understanding that one of my jobs was to make sure that every year the Greek festival in Astoria, and understanding that of the 57 languages spoken in the borough of Queens, New York City, see, everybody thinks of Manhattan as the center, but Queens is where you land your airplanes at Kennedy Airport in LaGuardia. And right there in that borough itself, the Greek community, Astoria, Queens, has sustained itself and still sustains itself, even in the understanding how technology and a global community continue to grow right around them. Yes, we can get along, but in the meantime, it's about understanding the cultures, each other's cultures, diversity. And for 7 years, I was on the board, Georgia Film Commission. So understanding why Atlanta, Georgia, right now is a booming $1 billion, multi-billion dollar film market is because the foundation and the groundwork, much of which you are doing again in Greece, is to reestablish art and culture as an economic engine. It is not just art and culture and institutional development of preserving our antiquity and making sure that our art sustains. It is also using it as a form to hire, to provide jobs. Your own economy is burgeoning again because you're acknowledging cultural arts as part of the economic overall engine of your nation. And it's interesting because right now global communities really can reestablish a link to each other. For a long time, as African American, I didn't understand and realize the link between Africa and Greece in theater, but it's there. Aesop's fables. He was of African culture, and it's understanding that yes, each culture has a unique art form which allows it to speak to its people on a kind of a dynamic, even field. Like you said, pandemic has equaled this field. And right now, we are reestablishing how do we engage our industry, entertainment industry, and the culture and other aspects of art and literature, all of it, and then intermingling it back into the global community, where indeed, if we take advantage of those assets, we will understand that the small percentage of the GDP that we put back into infrastructure, you're hearing that word a lot these days, especially here in the United States, infrastructure money, buildings, roads, transportation, theater. New York is just reopening from a pandemic that has absolutely decimated our industry, but it's back slowly but surely. And why? Because we have to remember the art and literature and theater was not created in the royalty aspects of it. It was always creating the stories of people, individuals, villages, communities, and those stories grew to become classics. Thank goodness we had Aesop's fables. Thank goodness we have Aristophanes, because those are the classic pieces that have sustained the length of time. I mean, I can go on about this a lot because it's right the things that we are engaging in right now with Coni and James and Glen, because we are redesigning how art and culture can get back into the business community, Dimitris. We are $1 billion industry, and without us, there is no fun. Remember that.
Definitely. And I think this is the most important thing. And as I said that in the first beginning, I believe that we are the first organization in Greece, the American Chamber and Commerce, that we are addressing the specific sector here, and we are doing this initiative in order to introduce, and because this is a very big economic sector for and a recovery, because I mean, as Coni addressed, we are humans, and humans are creative. So we need to have fun, and as we said, business with pleasure. Now we have to have pleasure with business. So I would like also to ask Glen. Glen, with your childhood eyes, what do you believe that kids and in general, do you believe that we are going to see some, let's say, optimistic messages coming from all these crises referring to children and to the market and to all these children's book market, or do you believe that kids are going to be only in gaming and killing each other through a PC?
No, I don't think the games are going to hold their attention for very long. It may be, a period of time that they spend on their games, but the games have so many different options now, and education can be implemented into the games. And the book that I wrote was for primary children before they get into their education. It's Tony the Theater Dog, and as you go through the book, it teaches kids about the different careers in theater, because we talk to kids about theater and then they, get a script in their hands and they think about actor. I'm an actor, I'm going to be on the stage. But we forget that these kids are learning in an environment now, and we have so many different types of learning. These STEM is a new type of learning that's being implemented into education. I'm sure the Greeks are also doing this in their primary educational levels. So the book, Tony the Theater Dog, the reason I wrote it was because small children, I worked in a summer camp for kids in my hometown here in Birmingham, Alabama. The kids were from kindergarten, a couple in elementary school, junior high, and then I had some high school kids from 9 to 12. So I had to figure out how do I bring all these different age groups together to do something? And you would be surprised how the older kids helped the little kids, and we painted sets and we built costumes. And then they learned that the playwriting is one job, the acting is one job, but then in the whole scope of theater, there are so many different jobs that feed that just one part of the CCI that you're talking about. There are so many people involved. When we go see tours, a friend of mine is putting a Broadway show on tour in the UK right now, and I got to go to the UK this summer to see them launch this production with a major company that I cannot name right now. But so watching them as someone that got to be in the room to see this, there are hundreds of people that worked all summer on every little detail of that show. And then when it opens, they all go away. And we're left with this beautiful, emotional, overwhelming piece that generates revenue like you've never seen. People were so hungry to come back to the theater. I'm getting emotional because the little kids had never been into the theater, because many of them were little and hadn't been to the theater when they were before the pandemic. And so coming back out of the pandemic, families were bringing their kids to the theater, and to see their faces in the intermission, and not only is it an emotional appeal, but the merchandising in the lobby was selling just t-shirts and everything to do with the show, and then all the restaurants were booming and teeming. So that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about little kids' books that get put on Amazon that can be a residual income for you. Anyone can think of an idea, which is intellectual property, and how you manage that intellectual property is key. Copyright it, trademark it, work with the leaders there in the Greek communities and find out how to protect your intellectual property, get someone on a team with you to make it happen, make it real, and then partner with Amazon. Amazon has a way to help you produce a book and put it out there for the world to see. Like Coni was talking about, the world wants your stories.
Yes.
This is very, very important that you are mentioning, and thank you for this, Glen, because as you said, it's the first time in Greece that we can discover that we have all these people occupied and paying in order to get a production. Even me, I couldn't believe that it's so big industry with almost everybody there, from woodcraft, from costume design, from people that they are building, and even for handcrafts that they are doing, some claim pots. And
well, before I made my way to New York, sorry to interrupt, I worked in the film industry in Atlanta in the 90s when it was just starting to boom. And I worked in the art department on a film. And again, hundreds of people went into that film, into the making of the film. I had no idea that many people. I thought 100 people working on a stage show was impressive. There's over 100, probably 200 or 300 that have their hands on a film. And so, yeah, entertainment is a major, I was surprised at the small percentages that you mentioned contributing to the economy, because I think it actually impacts the economy in so many other ways because of the outside businesses that benefit from it, like restaurants and hotels and shops and things like that. So
definitely. And James, I would like to hear about, we know, everybody knows that UK only from licenses is the most exportable from properties, intellectual properties, and music is one of the most exportable, let's say, codes they have in their economy. And from license they get all over the world from music. So I would like to ask you, do you believe that intellectual properties in musicians, in like Glen and Coni and Byron talked before, is, let's say, crystal clear, or do you have a bunch of lawyers that are running after you, and all this goes to the creativity and the cost of the creativity? Because what we see, many people, they are got afraid of sharing their ideas, of sharing their music, sharing their creativity, because they believe in the next second somebody will steal it and get some money out of it.
I think intellectual property in general is very important because as creators, we are the music makers, we are the dreamers of dreams. The performances wouldn't exist without the people who create the performances. I think with the advent of technology, it's easier than ever to create recordings, to produce albums, to produce individual songs or shows or scores. And I think luckily with that and the advent of technology, it's easier to copyright your material than ever before. I don't think you need to have dozens and dozens of expensive lawyers to protect your intellectual property. And I think that a lot of money can be made by selling your intellectual property once it's garnered enough interest from larger moneyed interests and production companies and record labels and things like that. I think that's one of the best things, though, that has come out of the terrible tragedy of the pandemic, is that, as has been spoken of by a number of panelists today, is that we've found necessity is the mother of invention. So I think the whole platform of digitization has gone a long way in the last year and a half, and people have done a lot more research. It's, for example, not difficult at all to copyright your material here in the United States. You can do it all online, and it's reasonably inexpensive. But more than that, once you've created something, a demo of something, a recording of something, if you've written down the lyrics to something, all of these things are now, instead of being written down on paper and put away in a shelf somewhere where you could never really know when it was created, everything has digital timestamps now. So if you were really worried about someone stealing or taking credit for your creativity, your intellectual property, it does become fairly easy to show, well, no, here's the date that this was created. Here's the geolocation where it was created. So even if someone else attempts to use fancy lawyers to copyright your material, we have hard and fast evidence to show, no, this is when it was created, this is when it was conceived. And so I think that really opens it up for a lot more independent artists who don't necessarily have access to the sort of high-priced lawyers that maybe large record companies would. So I think this is a very good time to be an independent composer, artist, actor, musician, any of the above.
Thank you for your input. So in this point, I would like to thank you really all, and for your efforts. I know that it's really hard for you. It's morning there, It's in the middle of a hard day. Thank you very much for contributing in our initiative, in our conversation. I hope that this is just the beginning of new efforts that we are going to have, and me personally and the American Chamber of Commerce would like to stand ahead and help make all this link and make a liaison between Greek creative industries and US creative industry, so as to help and multiply all these efforts that we are starting as individuals. So I would like from my heart to thank you really a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Leave you with one thing. We can achieve this because working together is about understanding each other's culture.
True.
And if we do that as understanding just how to say hello, goodbye, and thank you in the language that is most familiar with you, we have already crossed the biggest bridge in communication. Then we can break bread, we can share stories, and that's what theater and art is all about. Thank you.
Ευχαριστώ, Brian. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you from my
Thank you,
heart. Take care. Thank you very
Pleasure.
much.